The specialty cocoa market has long been a source of inspiration and innovation to the wider confectionery sector. So we speak to Leo Palmer of the fast-rising business 20 Degrees as it sets out with an ambitious agenda for the rest of 2021 amid a challenging market with plenty of opportunities ahead.
Absolutely. So 20 Degrees was launched a couple of months ago. So very new business, but it's been in the works for probably maybe 18 months, I would say. So we've really been working on it well before kind of COVID and everything kicked off. And we started off by looking around really at the Olam supply chain of all the places where we're working and finding the very best cocoa beans in all of those different locations, seeing which ones had the very best stories, the very best kind of potential for something different on the sensory side, and seeing if we thought that would be compatible with selling into the specialty market. So it was looking very positive. So we got to work with that, and fast forward a year, 18 months later, and we had a portfolio of 10 grades, and ready to kind of start up and try and sell into the specialty market. So I guess if you want to go a little bit before that, when we were thinking about it, we've seen a lot of growth in the specialty side, whether it's kind of organic, just organic as in no chemical residue, as opposed to organic growth in an economic sense. We've seen a lot of growth in the organic sector, and we've seen a lot of increased demand coming from much smaller customers looking for something very unique. And in the past, we would always have to kind of forego that, really, because we didn't really have supply to cater towards it, and we didn't really have the knowledge of what they were looking for. So we kept seeing this opportunity come up. We knew there were some fantastic opportunities at Origin as well. I worked in Ecuador for 4 years, and I have a lot of colleagues working around the world who always came to me saying we had these great beans, but we don't really have an outlet for selling them. So it was all these kind of confluence of all of these things coming together, where we thought we'll set up this vehicle separate from Olam, but kind of leaning on the supply chain of Olam, and set up the business, the marketing, the website, and see how we got on with it.
Fantastic. And as I understand it, you're going to be hopefully working with a number of confectionery manufacturers rather than any one particular brand. Is that quite right? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if one person could buy everything, that would make my life a lot easier. But no, the target is definitely to be working with lots of different smaller chocolate makers who are looking for something a bit different, who have that kind of interest in. I mean, everyone has an interest in provenance and traceability and sustainability, but people who are looking for something a bit different and who are really drilling down to something a bit unique, whether that's kind of micro batch of a indigenous community in Ecuador, or a kind of special genotype of a cacao in another country, whatever it is. That's the kind of level of product we're kind of looking at bringing to market.
Fantastic. And can you talk to me about the initial response? What have people made it in this, in the past couple of months since you've launched? What's been the initial feedback?
Yeah. So it was really, I mean, it was very interesting. We obviously started in a time where it's quite difficult to reach out to customers like in person and visit, and I think that's a very important part of any business. But at the same time, launching when we did meant there was a lot of opportunity to kind of reach people online, and it didn't seem so unusual. And what's especially different with this market is there's a lot of customers, but they're all very small. So in a way, the kind of online method of reaching out to people is probably the best way of doing it, because you can't talk to everyone in person. So I think that was the way we structured it anyway in the market. COVID kind of helped us in a way on that. And the first couple of months have gone well. We've got several customers on the books, and lots of people looking at samples, very positive feedback on the samples. But we're always looking really to get the word out more about what we're doing, kind of explain write down, on the ground what we're doing, and with trying to link up with whatever a chocolate maker might want to do, and trying to kind of facilitate that partnership back to the origin with a farmer or a single estate or a farmer group or cooperative, whatever it is, and try and keep building that demand up. Because the more we're able to sell, the more we're able to kind of build these projects up and do more and have a larger impact, and of course, give us more opportunity to grow as a new business. So it's all kind of it's very it's very interesting. We had an interesting one recently for Easter, where one of the chocolate makers we've been working with before launch. So there were a couple of people we had sold to before, just before the actual launch of the business, just as a kind of trial it out a bit to see if the things we were doing were right, and to get a bit of feedback and things like that, make sure the quality was right. So we had they had a few of our chocolates made from our beans in over Easter. So that was quite nice to be able to kind of say to a team, you can buy your Easter eggs from this particular company, and you'll be eating beans or chocolate made from our beans. So that was a really nice touch. Hoping to do that in the next holidays as well. Halloween and Christmas. Hopefully you can do something similar.
And in terms of the sourcing itself, this is the real story as I see it, in that you're gaining beans from some very unique locations in Indonesia and other sort of smaller nations around the world. So can you explain about how that came around?
Yeah, so it was really an exercise in looking at it's kind of a blend, because there are some places which are completely unique and I don't think have been seen at all in the cocoa market as an individual, segregated product coming all the way to Europe and US. So the one you mentioned in Indonesia is from Seram Island, where it's a single estate plantation. It's the only cacao plantation on that island, and it's actually owned by Olam, the company. So we have kind of complete vertical integration on that, and control of the fermentation, the drying, absolutely A to B, A to Z even, with the in between. And it was really cool on that one, because we started off thinking this is a great story, but let's hope the kind of flavor works on it. So we sent out some of the samples to a few people, to some of the kind of judges who work on the Cocoa of Excellence, to Darren Suka, who's one of the kind of main experts on flavor. And we got this great feedback on it, that they had spice notes to it. And Seram Island is one of the spice islands, or from that historical trade route. I think it was Dutch, kind of the spice island archipelago there, the Moluccas, and it just fit in very nicely with that. So that like doubling up of terroir and sensory was just, I don't know, it really worked well for me. So we're very excited about that one. That's been selling quite well. And then the other part was actually kind of looking at Ecuador. I always had a bit of a bias to Ecuador because I lived there for a while, and I knew the origin quite well. So there are so many great stories from not really stories, but great sensory opportunities, great farmer groups we could have worked with. So we had to really do a bit of a filtering in Ecuador to get the ones which we thought would be most interesting. So there's Cayapas, which is kind of a region in Esmeraldas, just close to the Colombia border. We work with an indigenous community, the Eparera, and the beans are, very remote area. You have to go by kind of lancer, little boat to get there. Very difficult to get the beans out, in good quality. So that project's has taken quite a while to get kind of the drying set up, the fermentation set up, and all those kind of things. But they were always something very unique about them. So went about that. Each origin we looked at, focusing mainly on the countries which people kind of are familiar with from a specialty context. So we started with probably the kind of smaller origins rather than Ivory Coast and Ghana. We were looking at Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, Ecuador, Dominican Republic, and Uganda. But definitely, continuing to look at other opportunities in other countries where we have these kind of like great beans that we can bring to market and see how it works.
Now, that sounds brilliant indeed. And one of the key areas that I've been writing on has been in relation to sustainability for the sector. So how much does that inform your own operations?
Yeah, so I mean, sustainability is in the specialty market. I see it almost as you have to kind of take it as read. It's the it's really the base. If that's the kind of lowest level point, is it has to be sustainable. But obviously, how you define sustainable is a bit of a question mark, because it can mean 100 different things to 100 different people. So for us, we're looking at a kind of combination of transparency, impact on the ground, and then kind of also trying as much as we can to link the end buyer back to the community as well. So all of our beans we have, whenever someone buys them, we offer that full transparency of where it's been bought, which farmers contributed to it, what price was paid to them. So that can be shared with buyers, and they can use that information if they want, or just for their own kind of comfort to know that information. And then we do a lot of work directly with the communities we work with too. So that can be, sometimes it's in the form of just direct work with the farmers, of training up on yield improvement, on good agricultural practices, on value improvement by doing fermentation and drying projects. But a lot of the times as well, we do certification. And certification occasionally, I know in the specialty world, it can get a bit of a bad name, because people see it as something which it costs a lot of money to get an audit, and that can kind of take away from what you're giving back to the farming community. But I think for us, especially when it's like organic, fair trade, their certifications, which are quite important, one for trust, so that people feel we're a company which has that third party monitoring on, so to give that kind of extra level of comfort. But also it's something which we do see interest in, when people kind of say, do you have anything which is organic, or do you have anything fair trade? They're the ones which people tend to have more interest in. So we kind of build around all of those different elements. It's not one thing in one area. There's I think 4 or 5 of the grades in the portfolio are organic at the moment, or just about to be. There's an audit happening actually end of April in the Esmeraldas region in Ecuador I was talking about. But it's kind of a bit beyond that. It's not just a case of getting a tick box on having Rainforest Alliance certification. It's also much trying to get that direct link back, and having that full transparency. So if a customer wants to do something specific, or has some sustainability initiative they would like to do, then we can also try and facilitate that. In the specialty market, because you're working with a much smaller group of farmers, and the focus is much it is a bit easier in that context. So if you're working with, in Ecuador, in Dominican Republic, we work with 14 different farmers. So it's much easier to make sure that there's no child labor going on there than it is in Ivory Coast in a supply chain of 10,000 farmers. So I think it's not, it's not, one, it's also not as big an issue a lot of the times in Latin America, and in most of the countries we're working. But 2, I think it's much easier for us to manage, because we have direct visibility with all the farmers we're working with. So that's a bit different. A lot of the time in the conventional supply chain, you're working through cooperatives or very large suppliers who buy from a next level down and a next level down, and it gets lost on the visibility of it. So with us, it's a lot easier, and it's not such a big issue, because we know exactly who the farmers are. And it feeds in as well with the transparency on the price. So when you're talking about what farmers are being paid and how that works, because we're working directly with the farmers, or in the kind of in 1 or 2 cases working through a cooperative who then pay the farmer, we have that information as well. So that's all there, and we also share that with our customers too. On deforestation, I think that's something, or really just a kind of environmental point, not just deforestation, but carbon footprinting and just general care for the environment. I think that's something as well we've taken. I think we've taken a bit of a stand on that from the start by saying wherever we can, wherever we're working directly with farmer groups or farmers, we will do the carbon footprinting on
Yeah,
that.
don't mind talking about your own journey in the business. How did you first get into the
Yeah,
clothing world?
that was a kind of fortunate stroke of luck, I would say. Really, I had two older brothers when I first left university, and I asked them who kind of already started their career like 5-7 years in or something like that. So I was asking them what's the most interesting careers of your friends they have, and they all kind of pointed to commodities as something which was very interesting. So I sent off a few applications, and Olam was one of the ones which got back to me very generously, considering I graduated in English literature, which isn't so related. Um, and um, and I was offered this fantastic opportunity to go and work in Ecuador. And I was a Spanish speaker, so I think it helped on that side. And it was just, you know, going from I was working with Accenture at the time on their kind of graduate program, and going from that to going out in Ecuador and working in, I was in Santo Domingo de las Sachilas, which is kind of 4 hours north of Guayaquil, 3 hours west of Quito. So, you know, quite a kind of one of the lesser trodden cities in Ecuador. I can remember the Lonely Planet saying you would only really go here in transit, and thinking, okay, this is going to be quite interesting. But the work was so engaging and challenging, and working just on the kind of commercial side, but also having a chance to work directly with farmers and building up our sustainability projects. That was it was just, yeah, I kind of got hooked really straight away. And so I was in Ecuador for a few years, from when the business started in 2011 there, till about 2015, I think, and moved to New York. And in New York, I oversaw the Latin America book, so and region really for Olam. So I was looking at Dominican Republic, Colombia, Peru, as well as some of the smaller origins like kind of Venezuela, Haiti, and again saw a lot of these specialty beans being offered. Saw a lot of the organic trade was being was coming up in Peru and Dominican Republic, and it was that recurring theme that there was this opportunity in the kind of premium space that seemed very exciting. And we started a bit when I was in New York, and yeah, we've really decided it would be a great opportunity to launch a standalone business to work in that market. So that was why when I left New York after, again, about 3 or 4 years, and moved to London, that was the goal, to kind of get this set up and not just look at LATAM, but also look at look globally and see all the different origins and bring out the best in each one of them, what we could do.
Absolutely, and how much of a difference has it made to you in terms of your own knowledge by working out in Ecuador, which is one of the prime sources of beans out?
Yeah, definitely. Working at Origin has really helped, actually, because I think sometimes when you're asking people to do something which sounds relatively simple, like, give you traceability or let you know how much the farmer was paid, but actually the complexity of that sometimes is going back through all the invoices, that it's all manual, and can take a couple of weeks just to get that information out. So kind of, I guess, having the patience, understanding the difficulties of some of the things you're asking to do has been help for me, and also I think has helped luckily build a bit of credibility for myself with the wider team, because they, I think, recognize that I also understand the challenges. I'm not just kind of being quite not oversimplifying it by saying, let's do central fermentation, central drying, centralized drying. Let's do all these trials to work out the best protocol. I think it's I think if you went into that, naively, you might think it'll take a few months, but it can take easily up to a year to do some of these things. I think the thing I've always liked about Cocoa One, I think the people in the industry are really wonderful on all sides. There's so much engagement and willingness to work to a kind of better to a better all-round cocoa supply chain. I think despite the kind of innumerable difficulties and complexities there are, I think everyone really has the kind of improvement of the whole supply chain in mind, and that's something I really enjoy as well. So we're 20 Degrees especially is a small business within a larger one, but I think that positive impact you can make both at origin and then hopefully having a delicious product at the end of it is quite unique. Something chocolate is a product that sparks joy really of everyone, and although people often slightly seems like you talk to friends about what industry you work in, they kind of have an image of you as like Willy Wonka or something, but you're working in a product that what you're doing is making a product that is brings happiness to people, which is fantastic. And you're also having, hopefully having a positive impact in some areas of the world which are have often quite deprived. So that's I think an aspect of the job that brings value to one. In any industry, if you have that, you can be quite happy with it.
Indeed, no.